Here today in the Tier 9 Japanese battleship Izumo, the tech tree ship on the map Islands of Ice. And we're sadly in a carrier game with my stock 10-point captain, but we'll make do. Can't always get what you want. Spawned here at AB, have my AP loaded. So, Izumo. Often the brunt of many jokes. However, she's not nearly as bad as her reputation might suggest. Now, of course, this reputation is somewhat built on previous iterations of her, when she still had 32mm middle deck, and basically just 32mm plating all over, similar to a French or British battleship. But that has since been buffed. She now has a 40mm middle deck, which resists a large chunk of HE. As well, her AP penetration on her 16-inch shells has been improved, so she punches a little harder. Her AA is still absolutely horrendous. And I believe she had a Sigma buff as well. So she's received quite a few buffs to make her more potent. My range is 19.7, it should be 21.7, I believe, under normal circumstances. However, I don't have the range module equipped because I never researched it on the way to my Yamato grind. So you saw there the rockets from the Audacious striking me, and so the rockets from the Audacious only have 27mm of penetration, so when they hit plating, they basically deal no damage. There's only one stray rocket that struck the superstructure, so Audacious rockets, while particularly potent, not that great against a ship like the Izumo. You'll notice that I have essentially minimal superstructure, so versus that kind of armament, it's not particularly effective. Now, as with all of battleships, her rudder shift is quite sluggish and her turning circle is quite large. But it's not horrible. Now we have an all-forward gun setup. However, unlike the Nelson, the rear gun turns kind of in a rearward arc. It's more compact, meaning that the gun cannot swing forward like in the Lenin or Nelson, which a lot of people get annoyed at. This does mean that similarly to the Yamato, you often find yourself with only 6 guns. Say if I were to switch over to a target on this side right now, my back gun would have to turn all the way around. So I basically wouldn't have access to it for about a minute and a half. These torpedo bombers, on the other hand, can easily penetrate me. As you can see, the Audacious is picking on me because I have horrid AA. I'm gonna turn in, but we're obviously going to take damage here. Let me see if I can pre-arm them. Okay, so we dodged one, pre-armed another one, shot the Vladivostok, launched our fighter, and killed the rest of the squadron. So this Audacious player is being, or Audacious captain is being a bit sloppy. So the torpedo did force us to swing around, and as I said, now we've lost 2 of our guns with which to engage the Vladivostok. You can see here nice tight clusters, a bit of spread still, but overall sure accuracy is Japanese, and when the shells do hit, they hurt. They're not quite as punchy as Yamato shells, but as you can see, the shell velocity is good, which means leading is quite easy. Vladivostok there amazingly managing to eat Zautorps, pretty embarrassing. And now, probably like 2.5 salvos later, our gun's finally re-engaged. Audacious Torps inbound for my Zao, looks like. So we did expend 9 of them on me. Salem about to cross into my field of fire. He's turning though. You wouldn't actually go for me again, right, Audacious? Ah, that's very rude. Well, it's unsurprising. My AA is, as I mentioned, not the greatest. I'm gonna launch my fighter now, but it's probably too late to intercept. He only has 2 squadrons, gonna take another torpedo on the nose, unfortunately. Izumo torpedo protection is probably on the side of not great. Did not get to see where my shells went because of the Audacious's interference. However, we are going to take a pot shot at this Moskva. So the turrets are pretty sluggish, but with expert marksmen like I have, they do turn responsively enough. Decent salvo, given this a Moskva. Targeted by 2, so probably that Musashi is looking at me. I do have to make a turn in front of him, so. Alright, come on, punk. Have at it. Now the Musashi is giving me full broadside, so. He's gonna take my shells. Might have overled him, he does not appear to be steaming very quickly. Yep. So similarly to the Yamato, the Izumo is pretty slow for a high tier battleship. Only does about 28, 27 knots, compared to everyone else's 30 plus. I'm gonna pop my heel. Now the Musashi's out of my range because I don't have the range module, unfortunately. And I'm gonna get set on fire. Tragic. But the fact that all your guns are together in the front does mean that you get some nice tight clusters at the things you shoot. Some nice superstructure pens there. And slow right down. What do we have here? My AA trying its best to shoot down these planes, but probably in vain. Oh, we have a broadside Georgia. So the Georgia is basically a cruiser in terms of its speed. Faster than most cruisers, frankly. She is punishable like an Iowa, but the way she turned out, I was unable to capitalize completely. Just pounding away at the fighter here. Do need to be careful with my rudder. Don't want to give too much broadside. This is already too much broadside, frankly. Looking at the Iowa, but he's quite angled. He's dodging torps. He's gonna have to dodge the island, though. Well, maybe not. Well, let's look at the Moskva. Out of my field of fire. Only 2 targets in my field of fire. Looks like he's turning back out. Moskva popped his radar. Kind of irrelevant to me, but he did spot the Shimikaze, that means. And there, Izumo showing off her penetration power against the Georgia. Georgia turned broadside, slammed him for 2 citadels. So the guns are punchy. Only 16-inch guns, 410s, the Japanese 410, but the Japanese 410 found on Nagato to Amalgi is more than enough to handle the job. Taking some fire, probably from the Musashi, and that's from the Salem. My guns are not turned the right way to deal with him. And I'm getting harassed by the Audacious again. I am the only one anchoring down this flank, so it's kind of annoying. Let's see if I can eat a torp. Eat the torp. He harasses me, we damage control. I really do want to finish off that Georgia, but can't do anything about that right now. I'm gonna shoot for the Moskva's unarmored nose. Alright, that's too far back, but superstructure pens serve me just fine. Bouncing the Georgia's 457s. My AA trying in vain to stop these attacks. So you saw there some of the Salem's HE splashing against my side armor, and so the side armor of the middle deck is 40%. So, or 40 millimeters rather. It's giving me quite a bit of side. Maybe he expected me to die? Oh, 1 citadel. The other ones bounced for the most part. An unfortunate game. Not much of a team here, just sitting in the back, as they may. But this does happen. Sometimes your teammates are not the most intelligent in the world. Now, I was harassed a fair bit. Some of these are fighters, keep in mind, so don't think that the Izumo is some AA god. But with some maneuvering, which the Izumo is fully capable of doing, you can dodge out on quite a bit of damage, so not the end of the world. Can my team even it up? I sincerely doubt it. They've completely folded on the A flank after all. Montana's gonna die. My carrier appears to be not doing quite enough. It's almost certainly no way these midway torpedoes connect. He might land 2 if he's lucky, but I'm expecting 0. Midway torpedoes are extremely easy to dodge. 1. Alright, not the worst result. In general, I don't recommend using midway torpedoes on anything other than the most larger targets. Okay, he did oversteer into 2. But that's more the Hindenburg being not that competent in anything else. And there goes my Des Moines. Team still clinging at the back. My Salem charging, which is kind of what you want to do with the Salem, but at the same time kind of not, given this is a battleship he's charging, which is really more of an anti-cruiser boat. Should be firing HE into the superstructure. AP is fine, but not sure. I think he might have slightly better results firing HE. Okay, now he fired it into the deck, which similar to me is above 32mm, so he can't penetrate the middle deck of the heavily armored Kremlin. Superstructure, aim. There we go. Aims back into the superstructure, now can deal damage. There we go. That wasn't too hard, was it? No, our Midway I guess doesn't have fighters left. Oh no, he does. Drops it kind of in front of the Salem rather than up against the Audacious. There's some merit to that. He could be spotting, I suppose. Salem has popped his super heal. He needs to dodge the shells from the Musashi. This is a pretty ambitious solo cap attempt. I mean, on one hand, it is important that he secures a cap. I don't think my team's held a cap for very long since the beginning of the game. But on the other hand, if he sits around, Musashi's just going to continue shelling him. And while you could risk doing this in a legendary module Des Moines, doing this in Salem isn't something I would recommend. Probably should have just rushed down the Audacious from the start. In the meantime, my Midway continues to do what he can, but he doesn't appear to be particularly experienced. Audacious coming in with the carpet bombers. See what he can inflict. It looks like 2 bomb hits, actually not awful. In the meantime, Yamato dispatches that Salem that was harassing us earlier. And up close we can see the Des Moines AP shredding the Audacious. Should kill him quite quickly. Oh, the angle is increasing though. Gonna have to switch to HE. Now when he does switch to HE, he's gonna have to shoot for the American angles. Alright, he ended up being fine, although I think this Audacious squadron will kill him. Unless he's lucky? He's fine, he ran out of health. Now I can swing around for the cap. Good kill indeed. And my team has managed to swing this around somehow. We still don't have caps, but we've managed to kill our way back into relative parity. Now the Musashi is basically helpless against the Midway. pointing out to my midway that he should probably move his hull. It's essentially nothing that could get him into trouble. Salem steaming for the cap. And now the Musashi, with its rather pathetic AA suite, it has essentially the same AA as the tier 6 Fuso. It's going to slowly get burned down by this midway who has apparently run out of most of his planes. Team is capping. They do need to be careful though. Hindenburg and a Yamato should be able to dispatch a Georgia and a Musashi quite easily. Midway attacking with his rockets. Some angry people. Unhappy with the Hindenburg who's cutting away, which is fine, but he could technically probably run at the Musashi. It is somewhat riskier though, so I can kind of see why he's not. As long as the carrier is working on the Musashi, there's no reason to close. He can just continue to set follow-up fires. There goes the Musashi, although he did manage to kill the Yamato, which is surprising because the Yamato is quite healthy. The Georgia closes now. And he can overmatch the Hindenburg, but the Hindenburg has quite a large hit point advantage, as long as he doesn't eat citadels here. Alright, Georgia popped one of his heals, looks like. But looks like he's kind of heal capped. Maybe my eyes were deceiving me. Anyhow, 3000 HP. Unless the Georgia kills him right here, he'll die. Even though the Hindenburg's aim is being thrown off a little bit by the fact that he's feeling north, shouldn't take too many salvos for Hindenburg to find a range. Though he's certainly trying to make it look difficult. Uh-oh. Well, it doesn't matter. Our caps are going to continue to tick. Actually, it does matter. 2 minutes. Not sure. It's kind of up to the midway to finish him. I think the midway actually needs to spot him. Otherwise we will probably lose on points. I don't think we have quite enough time in the 1 minute 30 left in this match. There we go. Plane spotted. Open up, Hindi. Georgia's steaming away at full speed, 40 knots. Well, he's turning, so not quite 40, but let's just say a high velocity. As long as the midway doesn't screw up and miss everything twice, we'll be fine. There we go. The midway spotting was enough. The Hindenburg did eventually land a salvo. And what looked like a pretty grim game got turned around by some fairly competent teammates. I was able to absorb some of their audacious focus, courtesy of being kind of alone and in a crappy AA ship. But I'm not exactly going to take credit for this win. But a win's a win. Anyhow, 87,000 damage, 28 shell hits, 24 planes shot down, 3 citadels, 4 defended ribbons, and 5 secondary hits on that Moskva when he closed with me. Team score-wise, actually not an awful game. 1900 is more than I was expecting for my damage number. look at the detailed report. Bunch of damage on that Georgia when he gave broadside. A little bit on the Moskva as well towards the end. And a whole bunch of planes. Mostly, oh, it was mostly fighters. He must have dropped fighters and fed me them. But anyhow, not a bad game at all. And that was the Izumo. Hope you could have learned at least something. It wasn't a very exciting game, but the Izumo's not exactly the most glamorous of ships. She's very straightforward. Just not nearly as crappy as, or not nearly as difficult to work with as people say. And in her buff state, she's quite pleasant. Anyhow, hope you enjoyed.